Hi, good afternoon, everybody. We're going to start now. Good afternoon. Welcome to Sunday Tea and a happy Mother's Day to everybody here. I'm Tara Alexis. I'm the founder of Mothers of Angels nonprofit organisation for women who have experienced pregnancy and baby loss. So for the first part of the event, we have our speakers who are going to be sharing our stories, and then that part is going to be recorded and uploaded onto YouTube. Then afterwards, if you want to ask any questions or share anything for yourself, that part will not be recorded. So I just wanted to let you know that there'll be complete privacy there as well. Okay, so let's get started. This is the second year of running the event on Mother's Day. And this year, when I was thinking about what to do, it was really impressed upon me by Tasha as well, actually, just how important it is to share our stories with each other. First conversation I had with Tasha, she was saying that she was hearing me share my own story, and that encouraged her to start speaking about her story. And I just thought to myself that it is important that we share our stories. It's important that no one feels alone, because with baby loss, you can feel very isolated. So that was the main reason why I was thinking of sharing our stories. So now I'm going to ask our speakers just to introduce themselves, where they're from, and say what brought them to Sunday Tea. Can we start with you, Sarah, please?
Yeah. So my name is Sarah. I am a befriender at SANS. So I've been befriending for about 7 years, and I'm now the chair of East Kent SANS. And I've been doing that for about just end of 2019, just before COVID. So it was a bit chaotic in those few years trying to provide support. I'm also mum of 4 that lost my first daughter, Harriet, 16 and a half years ago. And the reason I'm here is obviously, I mean, you invited me, but the one last year was really useful. And I just want to say that the theme of sharing stories, I think, is really important, because I remember feeling so incredibly isolated when it happened to me. So I think it's a great theme this year.
Thanks. Thank you, Sarah. And Tasha?
Hi, my name is Natasha Johi. I'm 29 and I'm a full-time mother. I live in London and I am originally from Kenya. I am a mother of 2. My son is called Isaiah. He was born in 2020. And my rainbow baby is called Naila, and she's 14 months of age.
Thank you. And what brings you to Sunday Tea today?
Today, I want to thank you, especially Tara, for everything that you've done. I never had any social media platforms. When I lost my son, I was very much confused. I didn't know my purpose. So I made an Instagram page, and I was just looking for mothers that have been through the same thing. And I came across Mothers of Angels, and I reached out to Tara. So when she told me that she does events and Mother's Day, how hard it is for her, I could relate. And I said, definitely, I would like to participate this year, 2023.
Thank you.
Asya?
Hi guys, I'm Asia, and we connected over Instagram with Tara. I run a page called Asian Miscarriage Hub. I started that page 3 years ago after I had my daughter, after 12 years of marriage. And initially I started that page to give hope to a lot of South Asian women or women all over that it is possible. But slowly I started to talk about the taboos and stigmas that I faced when I was miscarrying or I couldn't get pregnant. And it was so not enlightening, but it was scary to see that how many women actually go through that and they don't talk about it. So I just offer a platform where women can come and share their things with me without being judged.
Thank you. Okay, and also to let you know that today, and not even today, since the start of Mothers of Angels, SANS have been supporting and they've been amazing. SANS are the leading stillbirth and neonatal charity in the UK, and they exist to reduce the number of babies dying and to ensure that anyone affected by the death of a baby receives the best possible care and support for as long as they need it. And I really liked that part, because sometimes I was in counselling for, I think, almost 2 years after my loss. And there can be this feeling of, I'm supposed to be better after a year. I'm supposed to be better after 3 years. But with SANS, they were just there to support you for however long you need it. And I think that's really important. The charity work in partnership with healthcare professionals, trusts and health boards, and they offer a range of training programs and bereavement care resources to ensure that every bereaved parent and family receives the best possible care wherever they are in the UK. Okay, so now we're going to start with the sharing of our stories, and we're going to go to Sarah. If you could share a bit more about what happened with regarding your loss and also your connection with SANS as well, and how you got into that.
So I've been together with my husband now for about, oh gosh, I lose count, 25 years, something like that. Married for about 15 years, and we always knew we wanted children pretty immediately after we got married. So fell pregnant pretty easily. I was lucky there. And then went through a very, oh, hold on, my cat's about to come in. I'm just gonna... He meows a lot, so I'll just block him out. Yes, fell pregnant very quickly. Went through. I was very lucky. I had a very easy pregnancy. I had no sickness. I was quite fit. I was one of those lucky ones that it just seemed to work really well with me. And then got to 2 days before the due date, so almost 40 weeks. My waters broke. This was in London, and I alerted the hospital, who told me to just wait, because the waters broke, but I had no pain or anything. So I just kind of, I didn't get any sleep. This was sort of late one evening, and then went into the hospital the following morning. Went onto the labour ward, and just kind of laboured throughout the day. Of course, I think like many mums had this perfect idea of how the labour was going to go, and it was a lot more painful than I kind of ever imagined it would be. So then decided to have the epidural. So that was all fine. And then just kind of progressed, and then late that evening, so about 11:30, everything started to happen, and I actually gave birth. But then it was complete panic stations, because you could tell immediately that my daughter wasn't alive. And then they started to work on her, and I mean, the whole room was just in panic. And of course, me and my husband didn't know what was going on. And actually, it was me in the end. I turned around and said, "She's not alive, is she?" And they stopped working on her. And obviously the shock of it all, and the treatment we received in the hospital sadly wasn't great. And we very naively thought that perhaps it was a health issue with her. It was in the next few days that we discovered that it was actually medical negligence. And what had happened was that she had actually got into trouble during the birth, but the machines were picking up my heartbeat, and the doctor and midwife were thinking that it was her heartbeat. So they were thinking everything was fine. Of course, looking back now, babies' heartbeats are a lot faster. So actually she had died 15 minutes before she was born. But the doctors and nurses had no idea, because they thought that her heartbeat was still going, but obviously it was mine, hence why it was such a panic when she was born. So, and very sadly, if they had picked up that she was struggling, they would have been able to have saved her. They would have been able to have got her out quite easily with sort of forceps and etc. So yeah, complete shock. And then obviously my world and my husband's world just kind of completely fell apart. And yes, going back to what you said, just incredibly isolating. I didn't know that pain like that physical pain could actually exist. And it's that sort of aching arms, you're supposed to come home with a baby and you don't, and it's that physical, mental pain. And I don't think it ever leaves you, to be honest. This is 16 and a half years ago. And of course it's better, and I have more children now, which is wonderful, but it never leaves you. And I still find it quite overwhelming, actually, when I think about it now. I can't really go too far there, even though I do a lot with SANS. I can't think about what happened to me in too much detail even now, because I just find it very, very overwhelming. But I did go to SANS. I mean, my husband and family were wonderful, and I actually went to SANS meetings, hence back to your theme, because I just found hearing other people's stories and being with people who had experienced the same. I think I always say, I think it's the same with any support meeting, whatever it is you're there for. For me, gaining help from those that had been through something very similar just was the most amazing support for me. And I always say now, as a befriender, it doesn't matter. All of our stories are different, but it doesn't matter, because we've all had the same ending, and that is that our baby is not with us. So we all have the same ending, which I just think is so important. So I then went on to have 3 more children. So I was very lucky there, who kind of saved me, if I'm honest. But I then, once my son had been born, a couple of years after that, I decided that I wanted to get involved with SANS, because they were so helpful to me. And so I trained to become a befriender, and I've been befriending ever since. And then the chair left about 3 years ago, so I took on that role. But what we do with the SANS, so obviously you've explained about the central SANS, which is amazing. And then for those that don't know, there are support or SANS groups all around the UK. And they all have similar aims, and that is to work with the local hospital, so to provide help to the local hospital, and also to provide support to parents. So I work with the QEQM and the William Harvey hospitals in Margate and in Ashford, and we support them sort of financially, because they have the suites where people that can give birth can give birth in private, away from the maternity ward, which I just think is amazing. We've actually just had our first, I don't know whether you may or may not have heard this, but one of our ladies who lost their first baby is pregnant again, and is now having, they call it rainbow care. So they actually are going to the hospital now, and they're going to be seeing the same midwife throughout their whole pregnancy. They know the doctor that is going to be there when they deliver, which I just think is really important, because any pregnancies afterwards are never the same, obviously. We do support meetings, so I have a support phone, so I can provide telephone support. We have email support, and then we do meetings every month. And that's what I get the most reward out of, is supporting parents who are either just going through it now, and often what I find is that they do find it really helpful to see the befrienders. There's 3 of us, but we're all much further down the track, so they can see that there is hope. And yes, you always live with it, but you learn to live with it. And just providing that continuous support from those that have been through it. And it's interesting what you said, Tara, actually, is that we often have parents that come back once a year around the anniversary of their child's death. We have people that have come for sort of 2 years. We have people that might come for 1 meeting, but we're open to anyone that wants to come. And I just think that's so important, because you might need support straight away, or you might not. We have some people that come a year after, because they just haven't been able to reach out until that point. So yeah, that's what my role is within SANS. And also I feel like it's keeping my daughter's memory alive by me helping others. I find that I'm keeping her memory, with me. And I actually feel, actually written down, because I feel like I sort of carry her in my heart. So, and I really do feel like she's with me a lot of the time. So yeah, that's me.
Thank you so much, Sarah. I've jotted down a few things. Hopefully, if you're still around, we'll be able to ask them to you. But one of the things that I think about with my boy as well, so this April will be 13 years since I had a late miscarriage. And the things that I do, it could be something amazing like this event, or even something small. I've started to build my confidence with driving again. I'm like, I hope he's proud. I think he'd be proud that I'm driving my car now from where I am to see my family in Milton Keynes and things like that. So those things, keeping them in our hearts, having them, I don't know, just them seeing the things that we're doing and thinking, you're doing all right. I think that as well. So thank you again for sharing, Sarah.
I was just going to say quickly, that's the thing about you losing a baby or a child, is that you lose the future, and that's hard. So you're always thinking about 13 years. My daughter's 16th was last year, and you lose that future, and I think that's why it remains with you a lot longer as well.
Thank you. Okay, so next we're going to hear from Tasha.
So I lost my son, his name was Isaiah, in December 2020. So this year, December, will make it, can you all hear me? This December will make it 3 years ago. I haven't really shared my story publicly. So people that know me, I'm very much private. I don't share much. But I thought I was having Braxton Hicks, so I just kind of ignored it and decided to just stay at home. But the pain got worse, so I decided to go into Queen's Hospital. So when I went there, because it was COVID at the time, I had to go by myself. So I told my partner he can just stay at home. And I went in, they did their normal checks, the baby's heart rate was fine. So I just got dressed and I thought, okay, it's time to go. Sat there, and I remember 2 doctors coming in, and they were like, oh, you need to wait, we need to speak to you, you might be admitted. And I was like, okay, is everything okay? And I remember the midwife looking at me, and she was like, I'm really sorry, Tasha, but your cervix is open and it's 5 centimeters. And I was like, at that point, I was a bit like, things don't make sense. I was so confused, and I was a bit like, okay. And I was telling myself, okay, breathe. Okay. And I was just like, okay, but can I still go home? And I was told no. They all left me, and they said, you can call your family and let them know. And I just remember just staring at the wall. I cried. I called my partner and I said, I don't want to call my mom, but can you call her and find a way to tell her? It was 3 o'clock in the morning, and I said, you need to come. They said, you're allowed to come. So he came, and his eyes were really red, so I can see he's been crying. I was then there for 2 days, and I was told that I was going to have a transfer and I'll be moved to UCLH Hospital. So whilst I was in the ambulance, I was just asking questions, the midwife that came with me. And I was like, what happens? Like, what's going to happen to me? What's going to happen to the baby? And I was just given medication, injections, and they said everything's going to be fine, but you might be in hospital until probably the day you give birth. So I was like, okay. Got there, saw professionals, and I was told that I had an incompetent cervix. And that broke me, because I felt less of a woman, because I'm thinking, can I bear children? I'm not able to nurture a child because I have an incompetent cervix. So I was there for a week, and I remember it was 2 o'clock in the morning and I had the same pains again. I pressed the alarm button that was next to me, and the midwife came, and I said, okay, these are not Braxton Hicks. And she was like, okay, let's check. And they will come in every 2 minutes. She was like, okay, you're having contractions. She left, and then about 10 professionals came in. There was doctors, nurses, and I was like, oh my God. And they're like, yeah, it's happening. Went into natural labor, gave birth within 10 minutes. And I heard my son cry. And I didn't get to see him. So he went into the neonatal unit, and I was told that I had to wait till the next day to see him because I had lost a lot of blood. And in my head, when I was left, I told my partner, like, help me dress up, I need to go. And I went there and I saw my son. He was so brave, very, very brave. So he survived for 4 days, but because his lungs were not developed, he was born at 22 weeks and 3 days. We weren't allowed to hold him, so it was just more looking in an incubator, and I had a little book and I used to read the book, and I had a journal, and I was just writing in my journal, like, you know, all the things that I wanted to do with him. And when he got really sick, that was the day that I decided to go and sleep, because I hadn't slept for 3 days. I saw day and night. And the day I decided to go to sleep, oh, sorry, it's okay. The day I decided to go to sleep was the day they came upstairs and were like, your son's not going to make it, so, you know, you can tell your family to come. And I kind of thought, wow, you know, I thought I was going to leave with my son. I'm so sorry. Okay. And I was a bit like, okay. They told me that there's a chapel priest, and I got my son baptized, and my mum gave him the baptism name, so he was called Elijah. And I remember my godmother, my other auntie, and my mum came, and they came to visit, and it was just like a ticking time. And we were just there, and I just saw slowly like his movement stopped, and they put the oxygen on 100%. And I was told the things that would happen once a child that young would be put on 100% oxygen. And we just saw flatline, and then that was it. And then I was just told, like, I can spend the night or I can go home. And yeah, my life shattered that day. I felt so suicidal because I felt like I did everything in the book. Well, I was doing everything that I should do. I had a good job. I went to uni, and I just thought I've been robbed for everything. And it was so hard. But my godmother, who's here today, she gave me so much hope. So much hope. And in our family, we are actually a large group of women. So I was the first one to actually have a boy. And my sister's got 3 girls. So it was just really hard. Looking at my dad was hard because he was so excited that, you know, he's gonna have his first grandson. I was just so lost, so lost for so long. And I tried counseling didn't help. None of my friends, they're either mothers or their kids are older or they don't have kids. So I didn't fit in anywhere. And I had like my best friend called Elisa. And, you know, like I did tell her, like, I'm feeling very suicidal and I just don't have the strength and the hope to, you know, keep living and going. And I just started praying, and I got really close to God, and I just told God, like, you know what my heart desires. So just, you know, just fill me with a little bit of happiness, just a little bit. And we got home, it was December, and the next week we got all our deliveries of baby stuff, Christmas stuff that we had planned. And it was really hard being in my house. So I decided, okay, I just want to, you know, do everything I can with my sister's kids and give them what I was meant to give my son. And from there, I just started praying, and I made an Instagram page, and I just thought, you know, I didn't know how to work around Instagram. So
You're young, I thought you would.
I didn't have Instagram. Everyone has Instagram, I know. And I was asking my godbrother, like, how do you make Instagram? Like, what do you do? And I was like, what do people put there? And I thought, I'm going to make it about my son, but I just thought I was very like, I didn't want people to judge me. I didn't want people going on my Instagram page and think, oh my God, like, why is this girl talking about, you know, a baby that she lost? I was really scared because I didn't know if people do that. And then I came across Mothers of Angels, and I went to their first Sunday tea event and I was there. My camera was off and I just felt, wow, there were so many women in the comments, so many people there. There was over like, I think 100 people and everyone had a story. And I was like, wow, I fit in here. And I was reading a book that was grief and bereavement and therapy, and that kind of just helped me. So I managed to cancel myself because the pain that I had, I couldn't explain and I didn't understand it. And I was giving up slowly. And I just thought, okay, let me read and understand where I am. So I realized I had to accept, and it just only, I have a daughter, it's only when it was my daughter turned 1, I accepted that, you know, my son's gone and it's okay, you can speak about it. But it was just a very tough subject for myself, or being around people. But I do classify myself as a mother of 2. Some people ask the question, and I'm at that stage where I can say, yeah, you know, I lost my son, but you know, if he was here today, he'll be like 2.5. But that's basically my story. And I was blessed to have a rainbow baby, and she's amazing. And everything I do now, I do it for my son, literally. Driving, anything, even when I go out with my daughter. And when she grows up, I do want to take her to the cemetery where my son is, his gravestone. And, you know, I can explain to her, actually had an older brother. And we can just all be one, because I feel like it's something that I really do want to be able to share with her, for her to understand. And I'm here today because Tara, you don't know, but she's given me so much confidence. Honestly, she really, really has. Like, seeing her, how she talks and expresses, and, you know, she makes you feel so like loved and welcomed about your story. Like, you can speak, don't be shy, because I don't do it in front of friends. I don't really talk about it. I'm just very strong, up, smile, it's another day, and we keep going. That's how it is. And I think mentally it's the wrong thing to do. It really is, because I've broken down and I'm thinking it's a year later. Why am I still crying? But it's because I didn't accept what had happened. So where I've accepted it, I'm in a better place mentally as well. And my anxiety is better. So that's my story.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Tasha. Definitely, it takes so much courage. And as you said, it was recent. So to be able to sit here, I was having a conversation with the ladies this morning about progress and wins. And I was thinking to myself in the week, there is no way I would have thought that I would be here, that I would be sharing my story on Instagram and inviting other women to join us after my loss. And sometimes it could be a year and you still feel it. You could feel okay after 2 years, and then all of a sudden, 3 years, you feel all of that again. There is no, and I remember we learned from Whitney at the event last year, grief isn't linear. The journey is not linear. So progress every day is a good thing. You're winning every day that you just continue being here. That is a blessing. And my Mother's Day, so 4 years ago, Mother's Day, I had my loss 13 years ago this April, but 4 years ago, the week leading up to Mother's Day, I kind of recognized negative attitudes in my mind. I was like, I don't want to be around anybody. I would usually go to church on a Sunday. I knew I was not going to church that Sunday. Didn't want to see anybody. I didn't want to be around anybody. And then it wasn't until I received a message from my sister saying, Happy Mother's Day, Tara, you had a boy, a beautiful boy. I just completely started crying, and I spent the whole day in bed. That was 4 years ago. My loss was 13 years ago. So it still kind of had an effect on me. But I think what was most detrimental is that I hadn't acknowledged it. I hadn't said to friends and family, actually, can you show me some love as well on Mother's Day? Because I had this experience. I didn't share it. I didn't talk to people about it. So everybody here today is doing an amazing thing. You are doing an amazing thing by sharing. And I think it helps with the healing as well, just to be able to, don't know how to explain it, but it feels like telling one other person, and it's almost like, I don't want to say you get stronger, but it has an impact on you as well. And it's almost like having somebody else acknowledge and say, okay, I hear you, I understand you. You don't feel as alone. Maybe that's what it is. Okay, so gonna move on now to Asia, who's gonna share her story with us.
Hi guys, I'm Asia. I actually want to start off by sharing something that I experienced last week. I was at a networking event, and as an icebreaker, the host actually asked the question, if you have 3 or more children, please stand up. And for the first time in 12 years, I stood up. And if someone had asked me that 3 years ago, I wouldn't have done it. But I stood up strong and proud because I'm a mother of 5. I've lost 4 babies, ranging from 9 weeks to 23 weeks. And I had my daughter in 2020 at the brink of pandemic. She was born on the 25th of March. We went into lockdown on the 23rd. She had to make an entrance, obviously. You know, lock the world down, here I come kind of thing. So she did her thing. But that was a journey on its own. I had a very difficult pregnancy with her, which I'll go into in a bit. But yeah, 4 miscarriages. I also do have an incompetent cervix, like Tasha said. But my story's a bit different because when I did lose my children, I wasn't told directly by a doctor that I have an incompetent cervix. It was kind of like, we are going to help you. So when I had my son at 23 weeks, I did have a vaginal cerclage, a vaginal stitch, which obviously failed. But I was then told, we are going to help you carry to term, which was lovely to hear. I wasn't told that you have an incompetent cervix. So I don't know if a lot of you know what an incompetent cervix is. Do you know? Yeah? Okay. If you don't, it's a weak cervix basically, and they have to stitch your cervix up for you to carry to term. And so my vaginal one failed at 23 weeks, and then I was offered one that they actually put through your tummy, like a C-section. So they cut me open, stitched my cervix up completely, and that was it. I've just got enough space to have a period or to get pregnant, and that helped me carry to term. She's a strong girl. She kicked it out, which shouldn't have been done. So I had to go back and get it done again, which I wasn't expecting. But when my C-section was planned at 37.1, my professor at St. Thomas was like, so that's why you're contracting. You're 2 centimeters dilated. I don't know what the hell she's done. But yeah, that's what happened. I did start my page on Instagram because the South Asian community can be so toxic when it comes to baby loss, when it comes to infertility. I know for a fact that it's not just South Asian community that does that. I'd been married for 5 years. I was getting questions like, why are you not pregnant? Have you tried? Have you been to the doctor? What have they said? Have you had this test? Had that test? And it becomes really toxic. I refused to go out. At one point, I wasn't even going to my mom's house because it was just too much for me. And, you know, when you're already going through a journey and people's questions are on top of you, it becomes even more difficult to function. I have, I managed to fall pregnant 4 times. Why wasn't it happening? Because of the infertility in between. And when you go out to weddings, to parties, and you see the younger generation having kids, that can really affect you. And I was going to weddings where my cousins were younger than me, and they've got 3 kids, and I'm just standing there like, what is going on? You know, this is not fair. Why is this happening? You know, all the questions come under the sun, you know, and obviously, like, I had scans after scans, internals, everything done. Still can't figure out why I'm not getting pregnant. It's happened before, but it's just not happening. And it's a horrible place to be when you are at home, stuck behind those walls, and all you can hear is questioning yourself. Can I be a mom? Am I meant to be a mom? Like, why is it so easy for her and not for me? Like, what did I do wrong to deserve this? And it's really hard to get yourself out of that hole, but I did. Obviously fell pregnant, and I had the tack in place, and I was like, okay, this is it. You know, this is going to happen for me. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. I had a hemorrhage at 10 weeks. And then I was told the pregnancy has 20% survival. I don't know if it's going to work. Okay, but what did I do wrong this time? I've got the stitch. I'm on bed rest. I've literally taken sick off work. What have I done now? Like what? And that's when my parents were like, right, home now. Went home. And they kept like a 24-hour vigil, as you would say. And we went back in 48 hours later and they said, you've got 80% chance of this pregnancy surviving. I was like, okay. I wanted to be happy, but I was so scared to jinx it, you know? And my husband was ecstatic, my parents were ecstatic, and I just sat there. And I was like, I'm not even going to be happy because I don't know what's going to happen. They are telling me 80%, but I've been through 4 losses, you know, where I felt like, yeah, it's going to work, and it hasn't. It didn't. So why am I going to put myself through that excitement of of having an 80% chance of survival for this pregnancy? No way. So I went off sick completely from work. My employer was amazing, because I lost my son while I was working for her as well. And she said to me, right, Arsia, you're going off sick. I don't want to see you here. Once your sick finishes, I'm putting you straight on maternity. You are coming back with a child. I was like, okay, fine. Which is amazing because a lot of employers aren't like that either. And you know what? Touch wood, she was amazing. And I do give it to her as well. That is because of you, I have my daughter as well, that I was not taking any workload home because I work in the teaching sector, education. It's tough. It is hard. And it wasn't an easy pregnancy. I was bleeding on and off. I spent a lot of time in hospital. Became a local resident. Came a hotel for a few weeks. But yeah, she came in 2020. She's gonna be 3. She's like my little 3-nager, I call her now. She's testing boundaries. But yeah, faith got me a long way. Prayer got me a long way. Having faith in myself got me a long way. And if it wasn't for her, I don't think I would be speaking out today. I would still be stuck in the taboo and the stigma of the South Asian community. I would still be sitting there thinking, I shouldn't be talking about this. Why am I talking about this? You know, I would go to weddings and they'll be like, no, baby. And I'm like, no, just pray for me. Not that I'm a mother, actually. I've got 4 kids, you know. I'd be like, no, please pray for me. And that was it. You know, and when I did have her, this is how bad the stigma is, okay? I'll share a story. When I had my daughter in 2020, I had a phone call from this uncle, and he was like, oh, don't worry, you'll have a boy next time. That is how toxic the community is, okay? And I'm there, and I'm like, yeah, all right, speak to my dad, bye. Like, how dare you? I just went through the worst pregnancy. I lost 4 babies to be where I am. And you're telling me, don't worry, you'll have a boy next time. I don't give a shit. I have a healthy, living baby in my arms that I have longed for. How dare you say that to me? You know, and even now, 3 years down the line, difficult pregnancy, it's like, are you not going to try for a boy? How do you know I'm going to have a boy? What if I get another girl, you're going to tell me again to try for a boy? That is the toxic South Asian society. I'm not saying everybody's like that. Majority of it is. Which is why I made my page of Asian Miscarriage Hub. Because there is so much stigma around it. And when I did start the page, it was like, oh, it was my husband's idea. And he was like, oh, let's give hope to couples. You know, we went through so much. Let's give hope and let them know that it can be done. I was like, yeah, fine, fair enough. And then suddenly it just took a turn. And I had these women just DM me saying, I went through that, I went through that, I went through that, I was told this. And I was like, this is so bad. Like, we really need to change this. Miscarriage rate is 1 in 4. Why are we still doing this to women? My mom only told me about her miscarriage when I was 25 and I had my first loss. And I was like, Mom, really? And she's like, yeah, I lost 2 babies. And I was like, why didn't you tell me before? And she's like, oh, it's just, I was like, what do you mean, And now in my house, miscarriage is just spoken about. My brothers talk about it. My dad talks about it. My mom, we casually have a conversation about it. I told them I'm going to an event and stuff. And they're like, okay, good luck. Let them know how it is and stuff. And I was like, yeah, I will. And I think it's just about time that we started making this the norm. We started talking about it. How there's so many of us in here. Miscarriage rate is 1 in 4. I failed maths. Please work it out. I just can't. But yeah, this is what I do. And recently, because of my daughter, I go to events because one day I actually want her to stand up and say, "That's my mom." And she's doing that to bring normality. And if it wasn't for her, I wouldn't be here. If it wasn't for her, I don't think I would have actually qualified as a fertility coach to help women now, to help couples now. And it's because of her that I do this. And she is my strength. And I think the whole journey, my other 4 children have given me strength as well to come out and talk and normalize things. So, yeah, that's me.
So we're going to bring the recording formally to a close soon. Just wanted to, while we still have Sarah, ask a couple of questions. I was just jotting down a few things as everyone was sharing. One of the things that came to me is when you was talking about the funding that SANS have been kind of putting towards hospitals and making the environment private for some women. And when everyone was speaking, one of the things that struck out to me is the trauma that can come with a loss, which is a very difficult thing to deal with. So I wanted to ask the 3 of you, how would you kind of say that you found strength in relation to the trauma that you went through and where you are now? And is there anything that you think hospitals could do better or that they did do very well? And we'll ask Sarah first, because I know that you're going to be leaving us soon.
So how I found strength after trauma, I think that's a really hard one, because I think it was, I think other people, I mean, my husband got me through a lot. He did become my main strength, I think. The SANS groups for me, it was amazing. I mean, it may not be for everyone, but the SANS group I went to just really helped, because I think it was just the isolation of it, and then actually finding out that other people had gone through similar situations, and as we know now, many thousands of women go through this, and families. That really helped. I was very fortunate that I got pregnant again about 6 months after. That hugely helped me. But I don't know. It's funny when I sometimes look back and yeah, I mean, it's been 16 and a half years and I still feel like I've never really got over the trauma. I feel like I was a different person. It sometimes feels like it was a different life. I think I've forgotten a lot of what happened on the day, and I think that's self-preservation. But like I said, I think the whole thing still horrifies me, and I don't know whether you ever get over a trauma like that. And I still find, for example, if I have to go to any hospital now, I feel slightly panicky, because I now associate sort of hospitals with dying and not being good. So yeah, I don't know how I would answer that one. But when it comes to hospitals, I think what we find is, and we're trying to work together on this, is I think the hospitals and midwives do an amazing job, generally, not always, but do an amazing job of looking after parents whilst they're going through this. But I then find that they tend to leave the hospital, and then it's very difficult to get help after that. So I think I wish there was a bit more continuity of care. So we're always telling the hospital, you know, please give out our information. And I know that parents might not want it that moment, but, you know, please give them this information that they can take home, and they might find out a bit later about it. I also think the amazing thing that I know is starting to happen across the country, which I mentioned before, is you know, if you are able to have another baby, because I know it's not always easy, that continuity of care and that support afterwards as well for any subsequent pregnancies is crucial. Because, you know, with a loss, especially if it's, you know, especially if you do go on to have more children, that pregnancy is never the same again. So just having that support as well. So I hope I've answered that.
Yes, thank you. One of the things that you made me think of, and maybe Karen might be able to help us with this in a bit, is I agree. One of the best kind of memes or pictures, if you like, that I saw on Instagram was a psychologist. I think her name's Dr. Caroline Leaf, and she posted a picture of a ball in different jars, and the balls representing grief, and the grief doesn't go anywhere, the feeling that doesn't go anywhere, the loss, but the jar got bigger. So it's almost like you get stronger. It's there, but you get stronger. And I was reminded of when I was in counselling, something that happens, I don't know why this is, and that's why I look to Karen as our health professional here who might know, is when I started my counselling was at the hospital. And I was like, okay. But where I particularly was, and it was a South London hospital, it was kind of near some of the kind of maternity or antenatal kind of ward. And I didn't know why that was. I mean, I don't know if that's funding or what have you. And I remember in my first few sessions, when I was waiting for my counsellor, I didn't sit down. I stood up. And that's because in my head, I felt I wasn't worthy to sit down because I'm not a mum. I lost my baby. So how can I sit on this chair where all these other people who are pregnant or have babies, I can't. So I never sat down and waited for her. But then it got to a point, and it wasn't just because I was tired, where I did sit down. And I remember when I saw her on one occasion and went into the room for my counselling, she said, Tara, that was the first time you smiled and said hello when you greeted me. And again, that might seem like something that's really small, but that was a massive win. Sitting down and being able to sit down and that there's nothing wrong with me and that I hadn't done anything wrong, that's a win as well. So thank you. Just wanted to share that. Did you want to share anything, or did you want to, in terms of trauma and gaining strength? If you might not know how you gain strength, but you definitely have gained strength because you're here today, or even anything the hospitals or the medical fields could do. Or
with myself, I feel like when I go visit my son's gravestone is the only time I stopped crying. I was happy, I could smile. I felt like there was weight lifted off my shoulder every time I left there. But when I got home, the emotions kicked back in again. And writing how I felt made me feel better. And also I felt like when you have a good support group and you have someone that's a very good listener, my best friend's a very good listener. So it's more, what do you want to talk about? And it helps, rather than when I went to counselling, I don't know, I think being asked the questions and when it's so fresh, it's like, oh my God, the flashbacks, no, I can't do this, let me stop. And it's, you want to ask, when's this pain going to go away? I don't want to feel like this. I don't want to lay in bed, you're looking for sleep, you can't sleep, and you hear, like, when I leave my house, like, there's neighbors, they have kids, and I used to be like, oh, my sister would be like, come to my house, come and see the kids. And it's like, no one understands. I can't do it. You're pushing me and I'm not ready. Like, I'm going to have a mental breakdown. So it's just, when you're ready, when you want to take that step, take that step. And I do feel like Sarah's right. When you do leave, it's like you've been picked up and dropped somewhere, and it's like, find your way. You'll get there, but find your way. It's like a maze. And I do think they need to, tell people there's support groups, and there's Instagram pages, there's things like this that are out there, there's contacts, there's peoples you can. I didn't know about SANS until I saw on your Instagram page about SANS, and then I started following them, and I was like, oh my gosh, I wish I knew them. And during the pandemic, it was like, you're so closed in, you can't see people, everything's virtual, and it's like, it's not helping. And then you're in closed doors, you're in the house, and you're just wondering, like, what would happen. So I think if there's more women like us and there's other women that are out there, I feel like you can speak. I was nervous just the same way Aisha said. I was very nervous, but I feel like when I saw these people talking, I'm like, why should I keep silent? And I know I'm really hurting myself, and I want to fit in, and I want to be like near my friends, like, you know what, I miss my son. Do you want to come with me? But I'm scared to ask them that question because I don't know, they might think, oh my God, she's like laughing, breathing, where, you know, we're in a cemetery, there's dead bodies. But I don't know, for myself, I thought like that's where my peace lies. And that's how I've kind of like developed my strength. So that's my journey. And my daughter as well, doing all the things I had planned, I'm doing it with her. So I do feel like I'm fulfilling something, and it's a win for me daily. So that's how I played.
I think my strength would have to be my husband. And definitely my family. I think they're the ones who have picked me up a lot. I didn't have counselling, another taboo in the South Asian community. But you don't need counselling, you'll be fine. Just have faith, just pray, you'll be fine. I was offered counselling actually, but I was offered like an hour after giving birth. And at that point, you're just kind of like, you don't even know what the hell is going on with you. You've just given birth. Your son's been taken away. And now you're offering me counselling. Like, and I was like, nope, don't want it. And that's it. And then after that, wasn't even asked or anything. If I look back now, I think I would have taken it up. But my husband picked me up a lot. Even though he was struggling, he picked me up a lot. So I would say my husband is my strength. And obviously my daughter now, who obviously I do have. And I am fulfilling all my dreams, just like Tasha, like just doing everything that I've ever wanted to do with kids. So yeah, just my husband.
Thank you. And thank you to everybody who has found our video on YouTube and is watching. Just want to send you lots of love and wish you a happy Mother's Day. Thank you.